Hare Krishna, welcome to our session. We are continuing about women in Srimad-bhagavatam, continuing with Queen Kunti's prayers, very wonderful prayers. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunivadi Paschyata Desh Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for joining today's session. I'm excited to continue to share these wonderful prayers with you all. Today is also a very nice day. It's the disappearance day of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's Guru. So it's a nice day to study Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to be reading a lot from the purports. So bear with me, there's going to be a lot of reading today. Also, these verses are so tremendously important. Every verse, every line has so much meaning and depth in it, which we cannot get into in a short time. So I will just touch on a few things. I encourage all of you to please go through it yourself in your own time. Read the purports very nicely. And there's a series of lectures that Srila Prabhupada gave on Queen Kunti's prayers, which were compiled in a book called Prayers of Queen Kunti. So that is also wonderful reading. So kindly take the time to go through it. So we'll begin with 1:8:21. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Nama. So Queen Kunti is continuing with her wonderful prayers. And in this verse, she says, "Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses." So Kunti Devi is describing so many nice things about Lord Krishna. She is now talking about the personal aspect. She has been talking about the personal aspect, and now she's getting into more details about him. So I heard this very nice lecture on Nityananda Trayodasi by Parmanand Prabhu here in Abu Dhabi. And he mentioned that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said that one of the most amazing attributes of the Lord is that he is lovable. Right? We hear so much about the opulence of the Lord, that he has all opulence, wealth, knowledge, and all these things which, when we contemplate, we are struck with awe and reverence. So, in a lot of religious traditions, the attitude that a worshipper has towards the Supreme Lord is one of awe and reverence. But in our bhakti tradition, on top of the awe and reverence, when we are doing deity worship, definitely we have that feeling, and that is what we start with. But we are also explained that you can go beyond that, and you can actually have a loving relationship with the Lord. And then Prabhu had emphasized that to love someone, that person must be accessible and vulnerable. Accessible in the sense that sometimes people say that, oh, I love that so and so, influencer or celebrity. But is that real love? Somebody who you don't know much about. You may have seen some music videos or seen some movies, but you don't really know much about their life. But here, look at how merciful the Lord is, that He is revealing all His details. First, he comes to the material world. He does all these wonderful pastimes. So, people who are there, the devotees, are at once attracted. And that's not all. Even after he leaves, many yugas, decades, centuries afterwards, he inspires devotees from the heart and he reveals his pastimes. So just like the Goswamis in our tradition who were staying in Vrindavan, they were actually seeing the Lord's pastimes. So the Lord reveals. Why? Because he wants to be accessible to the devotees. So here, Kunti Mata is saying that these are the details. Just see, he was living in Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in this book, in this series of lectures, that this is how fortunate we are. That it is not just some conception that, yeah, God is somebody. We know his name, his mother's name, his father's name, his brother's name, his relationship with everybody. So that is explained. And in this purport, in 1.8.21, Srila Prabhupada writes, there is no parallel to his childhood pastimes as exhibited in Vrajabhumi, which are replicas of his eternal affairs in the original Krishna Loka, described as the Chintamani Dham in the Brahma Samhita. So just see his actual abode. He's coming and performing the same pastimes here so that we have a conception of what is the spiritual world like. And then we feel so much more attracted. And then Kunti Devi goes on. Namo Pankajanaභaya, Namo Pankajamaline, Namo Pankajanetraya, Namaste Pankajangraye. My respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. So, more details about the Supreme Lord. And this whole verse is so beautiful that in the lectures on this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada says, if we just remember this one verse, we can meditate on it for our entire lives and keep thinking about how beautiful the Lord is, how wise He is, how great He is. Because when Kunti Devi is referring to Pankaj Nabhaya, that from his navel grows a lotus flower, and that's the beginning of all the universes. Innumerable lotus flowers for innumerable universes, all coming from the Supreme Lord. So at once you are cognizant of his greatness and also his beauty. So these are very wonderful verses. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that he again goes back to when Kunti Devi mentioned that how can we as women know you? So Prabhupada mentions Srimati Kunti claims herself unfit to see the Lord because of her being a woman. This is claimed because women, Shudras, and Dvijabandhus are unfit by intelligence to understand the transcendental subject matter concerning the spiritual name, fame, attributes, forms, etc. of the Supreme Absolute Truth. So again, this topic of that women may not be that intelligent to understand very dry, deep philosophy. And Prabhupada says also most people in Kali Yuga, because the people are classified as Shudras, Dvijabandhus. And what is the solution? That it's explained in the purport that for such to facilitate such individuals, the Lord comes as his Archa Vigraha. And Prabhupada says that therefore the temple should be a place where all the people are attracted. And we are so fortunate that in ISKCON there is the tradition of very opulent deity worship. It is so attractive that one feels like going to the temple every day, several times a day. And just by observing the beautiful deity, slowly, slowly our hearts melt and we develop some kind of attachment for the Supreme Lord. Because I find that in most traditions, because the way we were brought up, it was always this conception that Lord is there somewhere, he's like a force, a light. So it's hard to have a relationship when you are told things like this. So it's very wonderful that in Bhakti tradition, we have this conception of a personal Lord. There is temples, there is Vigraha, where the Lord mercifully comes so that we can relate to him. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that one should not think that a lot of people who think they are very spiritual, very philosophical, they think, well, temple worship is just for lower um, devotees, people of less intelligence. We are more advanced, so we will just sit in one place and meditate. So this is very difficult in Kali Yuga, actually. And Prabhupada does not recommend that we should have that kind of mentality, and especially for women. And I was thinking, this is actually very nice. In the Middle East region, I see that we don't have our temples, ISKCON temples, but so many householder devotees have their altar and they're maintaining it just like a temple. So recently I was in Kuwait and we were staying with a very nice householder couple. And I observed that how Mataji, throughout the day, she's preoccupied with taking care of her deities. They do aarti so many times. They have a tradition of doing bhog aarti when they serve bhoga, and always thinking of what to prepare. So it was very nice to see how she was constantly engaged, thinking about Shingar and keeping the temple so nicely. So that is ideal. And it is also it's very nice. I mean, you can spend your whole life like that and you automatically are in good consciousness. You don't have time to watch TV, to gossip, to waste your time in other things. And it's a very wonderful way to engage. And that is recommended by Srila Prabhupada. So this was very nice. Continuing with prayers of Queen Kunti. Now, the next three verses, I'm going to read the translation, which is the crux of our class today. 1:8:23. O Rishikesh, master of the senses and lord of lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. Okay. So there is something very nice mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in the purport. We'll come back to it. Kunti Devi continues, 1:8:24. My dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from a poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashwathama. So Kunti Devi is mentioning all the difficulties that they have gone through. And in what mood is she mentioning? That you saved us. Each time you saved us. But look at the long list. Practically her whole life, Kunti Devi has been suffering, in one sense, if we see from a material point of view. That when they were young, Dhritarashtra and his sons were always plotting to kill them because they wanted to be on the throne. They gave poison cake to Bhima. They set them up in a house which was made of lac and very quickly catches fire. Then they had to escape. They were faced with cannibals who wanted to eat them. Then, the gambling match, which was so horribly insulting. After that, they were sent to exile, and there also they were always trying to trouble them. Finally, the great battle was fought. And even after that, the sons of Draupadi were killed, and Parikshit Maharaj was about to be killed. And that incident has just happened before Queen Kunti is praying to the Lord. So all these things have happened with them, horrifying things. We can't even imagine such calamities in our life. And then what does Queen Kunti say? What is her attitude about all these calamities in her life? 1:8:25. Vipada santuta shasvat tatra tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yat syat apunar bhava darshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. So, this is Queen Kunti's mood. Such an exalted prayer that, yes, we have faced with all these calamities, all so much suffering, but I wish they would happen again because now it seems that they have finished and Lord Krishna is on his way back to Dwarka. So he will leave them. And Queen Kunti is feeling so much separation in anticipation of that Lord Krishna will leave, that she says, I want those calamities to come again so that we can see you again. And why is that so beautiful, apart from the fact that she loves Krishna? That to see the Lord, to meditate on the Lord, means that we have such a wonderful consciousness that this birth will be our last birth. We will no longer see repeated birth and death. So, our topic for today's class is how to deal with calamities. So, if we take advice from Kunti Devi, her advice is let the calamities come again and again. Her advice is to, if you want to deal with calamities, pray that they keep coming. So, obviously, for most of us, this is a very exalted platform which we can, realistically speaking, certainly not follow immediately. Because if we think back of any one thing that has been very distressful in our life, of course, the last thing we want is for it to happen again, which is all right. We must be cognizant of our own situation and not artificially try to be something that we are not. In this context, I want to narrate another pastime which would be helpful for us to understand what our attitude should be, apart from this very exalted position of Queen Kunti, which we are not at, most of us. So in 6th canto, there is a narration of a pastime of Chitraketu. Chitraketu was a king and he was flying in his airplane one day when he was crossing Kailash Parvat, and he saw that Lord Shiva is sitting in an assembly of sages and on his lap is Mother Parvati. So seeing this, Chitraketu started to laugh. And he said, oh, how wonderful it is that Lord Shiva, who is such a great personality, is sitting with his wife like this in an intimate position when all the sages are there. So he just made this comment and he made it within earshot of that assembly. So Mother Parvati got very upset and she cursed him that he will fall from this exalted position that he has and become a demon. And what was Chitraketu's attitude towards this? So it is mentioned in 6:17:17, 6th canto, 17th chapter, verse 17. Chitraketu said, my dear mother, with my own hands folded together, I accept the curse upon me. I do not mind the curse, for happiness and distress are given by the demigods as a result of one's past deeds. So this is a devotee. Such a great calamity. He's in a very comfortable situation, and from there he has to fall and not just become an ordinary human being, he has to take birth as a demon. So taking birth as a demon means automatically he will have envious mentality. He will do something against the demigods. So this is a very dangerous situation because if you do something wrong, you incur karma and it's more entangling. But he just accepted it. So Prabhupada explains in the purport. Since Chitraketu was a devotee of the Lord, he was not at all disturbed by the curse of Mother Parvati. He knew very well that one suffers or enjoys the results of one's past deeds as ordained by Deva Netre, superior authority or the agents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knew he had not committed any offense at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva or goddess Parvati. It is explained that they were like peers, Chitraketu and Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva did not take any offense. So it wasn't appropriate for Mother Parvati to curse him. And he knew this. Everybody knew that. But still, he just accepted it. Yet he had been punished. And this means that the punishment had been ordained. So he thought, well, maybe I was not at fault, but this has happened. That means it must be due to something that I did in the past. Thus the king did not mind it. A devotee is naturally so humble and meek that he accepts any condition of life as a blessing from the Lord. Tattenu kampam susumikshaman. So this is a very wonderful verse. I hope we can discuss it in detail in another class, which is 10:14:8, prayers of Lord Brahma towards Lord Krishna, in which he says that a devotee always accepts punishment from anyone as the mercy of the Lord. So Lord Brahma prays that your devotees are so exalted that any problem that comes on their head, they just accept it. Oh, this must be due to my past misdeeds. And they continue with their devotional service. If one lives in this conception of life, he sees whatever reverses occur to be due to his past misdeeds, and therefore he never accuses anyone. So this is important because often we find we want to lay blame somewhere. If something wrong happens with us, our first reaction is, oh, it happened because of this or because of that. Or if it is a natural occurrence, then we are just bewildered that why did this thing happen to me? But not so a devotee. A devotee's attitude is that whatever is happening, it is sanctioned by the Lord. It is due to my own past misdeeds. So let me just tolerate it and go on with my devotional service. On the contrary, he never accuses anyone. On the contrary, he becomes increasingly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of his being purified by his suffering. Suffering, therefore, is also a process of purification. So now this is important to understand that sometimes in some traditions, people think that simply following austerity will give benefit. So this is not recommended that you do something very strict like just taking milk for 1 month and not eating anything. So unless there is a reason attached to that austerity that you want to progress more in your spiritual life, less be attached to material things, then it is not purifying. But if there is suffering, in which a devotee becomes more attached to the Lord, that is purifying. So it's not that the suffering in itself is purifying, but one's attitude while undergoing that suffering will be purifying. So in this context of, how the whatever happens is because of our past misdeeds, our own bad karma, there's another important point in reference to devotees. So this is in the purport of Canto 1, chapter 17, verse 18, which is the incident when Parikshit Maharaj saw that the personality of religion in form of a bull and Mother Earth in form of a cow was being beaten by Mother Kali, by the personality of Kali. So he questioned them that who is this and why are you undergoing so much suffering without protesting? And then the bull said, no, it's difficult to ascertain why bad things happen. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that although they knew perfectly well that Kali was the direct cause, still they knew that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble on them. So same thing, that they felt that this is because of our own sins. So we don't want to blame anybody. Thus, even if the devotees see the mischief mongers, they do not accuse them for the sufferings inflicted. So all this we are discussing, what should be one's attitude when something bad happens. They take it for granted that the mischief monger is made to act by some indirect cause. So we may see that somebody is causing us harm, but that is not the only person responsible for it. We are ourselves responsible because of what we've done in the past. Hmm? And therefore, they tolerate the suffering. And this is an important point. Thinking them to be God given in small doses, for otherwise, the suffering should have been greater. So, even the suffering that comes, the devotees think that, oh, I'm suffering, but Krishna is so kind that he's made it even less. And in the lectures that Srila Prabhupada has given on Queen Kunti, he explains in one place that maybe a devotee was supposed to be killed, but what actually happens to him is that he gets a cut on his finger. That much the suffering can be reduced. So if we are undergoing such some calamity, we should have this consciousness that, oh my, I'm feeling so much distress. But imagine how much more this calamity could have been if I was not a devotee, if I was not even following this path. So it's a very important thing to understand that things may be happening because of our own bad karma, because it helps us to make sense of things. Otherwise, people are often left with this, why me? When something bad happens to them, they feel, oh, so and so, who is, my neighbor or somebody in the family who's my age or similar background, they seem to be progressing very nicely, and I'm always suffering. So, but when one thinks that, okay, you may have studied in the same college as that person, but what about the things that have happened in the past so many lifetimes? We don't know. So that is an important understanding. Although this is understanding we should apply on ourselves. When we see devotees undergoing suffering, we should not think, oh, they must have done such bad things in their past. Look at them now. No, because this is an interesting point which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. So I'm again reading back from the purport of Chitraketu, that was 61717. He says that one who has developed Krishna consciousness and who exists in love with Krishna is no longer subject to suffering and happiness under the laws of karma. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives so many references to prove this from Bhagavad Gita, Saguna Samatityetan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Then from Brahma Samhita, Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam. So all these things, all these verses and scriptural references explain that a person who takes to devotional life is no longer subject to karma. So all these devotees that we see in the scriptures who go through suffering, or say exalted devotees like Srila Prabhupada, they are not under the laws of karma. They are not suffering their past misdeeds. It is all due to Krishna's personal intervention in their life. So our attitude towards another devotee who is suffering should not be that it must be something they have done. Our attitude should be, oh, Krishna is intervening in their life, and therefore they are undergoing this. But it's a bit odd that, oh, why would Krishna give suffering to his devotees? So now we'll go back to the purport of Queen Kunti's prayers, the 1:8:23. In that, Srila Prabhupada explains that actually Queen Kunti was favored more than even Devaki, who was Krishna's mother. Why? Because she was a widow and there was no one else to help her except for Krishna. The conclusion is that Krishna endows more favor to a devotee who is in greater danger. And then Prabhupada says, sometimes he puts his pure devotees in such dangers because in that condition of helplessness, the devotee becomes more attached to the Lord. The more the attachment is there for the Lord, the more the success is there for the devotee. So sometimes we see very senior devotees in our movement undergoing so much suffering, but it's Krishna intervening in their life. And actually, the more advanced the devotees, they do not even feel that suffering. So, so why does Krishna do it? Sometimes just to pull the devotee quickly close to him. Sometimes to show an example, just like his devotees, like Pandavas, Prahlad Maharaj. They are not even they don't even need to be put in danger to be, you know, fully surrendered to the Supreme Lord. They are. But there, Krishna is doing just to give an example of how exalted Krishna's devotees are, how they tolerate happily and they're still undergoing, they go on with their devotional service. So, we discussed how we should look at suffering or calamities by thinking that this is because of our past misdeeds, how we should look at other devotees who are undergoing suffering. And we'll also unpack a little bit more of what Queen Kunti has said about calamities coming again and again. So we may not be able to pray that the calamities should come again and again, but we can relate to what Kunti Maharani says, that when calamities come, we see the Lord. In our case, that we turn towards the Lord. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that it is natural for a pious person to approach the Supreme Lord when calamity comes. For a pious person, if there is some calamity, there is no alternative than to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. He said, foolish people try to make, adjustments, but a pious person will first pray to the Lord. Constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord means preparing for liberation from birth and death. Therefore, even though there are so called calamities, they are welcome because they give us an opportunity to remember the Lord, which means liberation. So, anybody who's a little bit pious, when difficulties come, definitely they will pray to the Lord. They will, if they want to come out of that difficulty, they may pray, or they may pray that whatever the case be, give me the strength to withstand it. So many things there are there, and it helps us to immediately think about Krishna. It's natural we think of Krishna more when we are troubled than when we are happy. And then Prabhupada continues to say that another aspect of calamities, when calamities come, is that we should understand that this is actually a dangerous place, the material world. And it is going to be full of calamities. So, less intelligent persons prepare plans to adjust to those calamities without knowing that the nature of this place is itself full of calamities. So, Prabhupada was saying in his lectures that people who don't have knowledge of scriptures, they think that this is the only life they have, and they get difficulties and they work very hard to make a very comfortable situation for themselves in this life because they think, okay, once I die, anyway, everything is finished. So let me work very hard in making a very comfortable situation. But what does a devotee do? He, firstly, when calamities come to people who don't have scriptural knowledge, they get bewildered. Small calamities, they will try to make adjustment. Big calamities come, they get into depression, or they get totally bewildered, confused about how they should handle it. But a devotee who knows why it is happening and understands what the nature of the material world is, he is more accepting of the situation. So, an ordinary person has no information about the abode of the Lord. So, there's also this, that a person who has no knowledge, they will get bewildered and depressed because they feel, what is the point? This is just so horrible, this world. And by the end of it, anyway, there is nothing more. But a person who has the knowledge of the spiritual abode has something nicer to look forward to. Because the duty of the sane person is to be undisturbed by the worldly calamities, knowing that the abode of the Lord is full of bliss and without trace of calamity. So Prabhupada is explaining that this is also something that helps devotees when they are in times of trouble. Understanding that this world is not the be all and end all. This is not where we are supposed to be. And if we are nicely following the spiritual path, someday we may reach there, which is our actual home and which is always blissful and peaceful. So just like sometimes when we are grown up, we go to hostel or we may go to another city for work. And then when we come back home to our parents' house, we feel so relaxed and peaceful and happy. So that is the situation, that in this world we are always troubled, but at least we know we have a home. So that helps us to go on with the struggles of this world, knowing that, okay, this is temporary. I have hope. I have a better place to get to. So Prabhupada recommends that suffering all sorts of unavoidable misfortunes, one should make progress in spiritual realization because that is the mission of human life. So we are going to pause our discussion and I'll just recap the nice things that we discussed about handling calamities. That first, we should think that this is because of our own bad karma. Then we should think, even so, look how kind Krishna is, that he's made this suffering even less because I'm somehow turned towards him and trying to progress in devotional life. So that is still less. And then we should understand that this suffering is inevitable, it is going to come. So we should be more accepting of it and not be bewildered or depressed. Then we should think that there is a nicer place which I can aspire to go to. So that's something hopeful, something that gives us some joy that there is a home that is my actual home, and there will be no calamity. So these are the things, this is some things that we can think about. And how should we practically deal with calamities? That is also given in scriptures. Sometimes we see, just like in the case of Pandavas, when they were faced with all this, the house of which was to be put on fire, they made a tunnel. So we still have to make the endeavor. It's not that calamities come, we should not do anything. Yeah, we're in this material world, we are in householder life. If there is some problem, we have to try and mitigate it. That's all right. And then a higher standard is that we just try to tolerate. So we have wonderful examples of Prahlad Maharaj, Jad Bharat. So Jad Bharat, in his third life, he was so determined that he will not be deviated from spiritual life that he did not want to do anything. He didn't want to engage with the material world. So whatever was happening to him, he was just accepting that I just want to finish this life. So that is another very exalted level. Maybe we are not at that level, but these examples are given that, of course, they were facing such huge calamities, right? Haridas Thakur being beaten and beaten. So we are not in that situation. But taking inspiration from these exalted personalities, when our smaller calamities come, we should also try to be tolerant and accepting. And we pray that at some point of our life, we'll get to this very exalted position of Kunti Devi, that she's suffering and she's saying, wow, I want more of this suffering. So that is like a very high standard. It is, these things are given in scriptures to inspire us, to teach us that what is the level that we should be at, be fully surrendered to Lord Krishna. So these are some things we should meditate on. And when we think about these things, then the little troubles that we have in our life, it'll be easier to withstand them. So I wanted to take this topic because I'm in touch with so many Matajis and we discuss about many problems that they face in life. So mostly devotees get in touch with me when they're facing a problem. And that is, of course, that's the nature of the material world. I get so many, we have discussions and we come up with practical solutions. But the point is, we all are going to face calamities, big and small, in our life. So these are some of the things we should keep in mind when we face calamities, and it may help us to go through them in a more peaceful way and remembering Lord Krishna. Because if we do so, then the Tatte Nukampam verse says that then surely we will go back home, back to Godhead. If a devotee is suffering and still he doesn't leave the lotus feet of the Lord, then he is assured that he will go back, he will attain liberation. So it's a very nice thought. It's an encouraging thought when we are undergoing suffering. Hare Krishna, Mataji's. We'll pause here and take up any questions or comments, anything that you want to share. Hare Krishna. Mataji, now if you could help me with the questions as we discussed.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much for the wonderful lecture.
So if anybody wants to ask a question, you can press your raise hand icon or you can type in the chat, and then Nirmala Mataji will kindly unmute you or read out the chat question.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So much the lecture was really inspiring. And what happens is like when we hear the lecture, we are able to understand, okay, calamities are definitely going to come and we have to deal in certain ways. But when it actually comes, we are able to advise others when it is happening with others, but we're not able to apply in our lives when the same happens with us. So how can we be like applying it in our lives rather than always advising? Because it happens with me that when it happens with me, I'm like, okay, now what to do? And then, as you said, we reach out to seniors. So
Yes. Yes, so that is the right thing to do, Mataji, that we reach out to seniors because they will give us good advice. And just like we are reading in the scriptures. So if we read the purports of these verses, Queen Kunti's prayers, and like I said, the teachings of Queen Kunti, that book, or 6:17:17, and then the Tatte Nukampam verse, which is 10, just tell you. It's a very wonderful verse. I had actually put that verse on my door, 10, 14, 8. So if we keep these handy and then we go through them, it gives us some strength because we are reminded of these points again and again. So therefore, scriptural study is very powerful because it helps us to, these are points that we've discussed often. And if you hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures, you will see that Prabhupada explains some things again and again and again, that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and we are his servants, and the position of the jiva within the material world. But this is required. We have to hear it again and again. So therefore, we discuss the same things again, and then gradually it will stay in our consciousness that when that situation comes, we will be able to apply what we have, uh, studied and heard and discussed. If we don't discuss it at all, then it'll never be on the top of our mind. And therefore it is also nice to learn shlokas and understand them. Then immediately the shloka comes in our mind and we are reminded of what our proper attitude should be. So in a brief way, we are reminded of the philosophy if we know these wonderful shlokas. So some key shlokas we can keep in mind. We can put them up, we can print them nicely, put them up so that we are reminded. And like you said, keep in association of devotees. They always help us to remain in the right consciousness. So that would be helpful. Yeah, that's one. Because the process is one of dharya, patience. Gradually, these things will be more present in our heart. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That initially things trouble us more. As we mature in bhakti, it becomes easier to withstand.
Thank you, Mataji. Survi Mataji is online to ask you a question.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Ji, thank you for wonderful lecture, and it's very helpful, and you explained very nicely each and every point. Mataji, my question is that it is said that in the life of advanced devotees, it is the planning of Krishna, not their karma. But in devotees means like me or not so advanced, so in their life only karmas they are facing, or there is some little planning of Krishna also?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, my daughter had asked the same thing. She said, when something happens to us, how do we understand? Is it karma or is it Krishna? So, one thing is that even our karma is under Krishna's supervision. Everything is happening under Krishna's supervision. That's one thing. But generally, that's what we were studying. A devotee's attitude is that it's my karma. We always feel that I'm so fallen. I don't think Krishna will be intervening in our lives. But still, at the same time, Prabhupada says that we understand that the suffering is minimized. So, who is minimizing the suffering? Krishna is minimizing. So, I think there is some intervention, but it's hard to tell. So it's safer for us to think that in a humble way that no, this is just me. It's not Krishna. It is my own bad karma. But yeah, so that's a devotee's attitude. Still, we understand that sometimes things happen and you just know that this is impossible. This must be Krishna. So if we have a feeling like that, that's all right. It helps us develop our faith in Krishna. Because sometimes something bad happens and then we feel very upset. And ultimately, it works out in such a way that it's better for our spiritual life. So then we can understand maybe this was Krishna. Somehow or the other, he's pulling me closer towards him. That maybe there was a lot of suffering at that time, but something happened, and now your faith is stronger in Krishna. So it's our own experience and what we feel in our heart. But generally, we should not think that, now I'm devotee, Krishna is doing everything. And, then, because sometimes people start blaming also. They feel that, oh, why is Krishna being so mean to me? So that's a dangerous position. You don't want to be there where you feel that the Lord is being unfair or he's putting you through some suffering. It is the understanding of devotees that Krishna only gives a devotee that much which a devotee can withstand. So even if he is trying to pull us closer to him, it is in such doses that we can handle. So we should generally think that, not analyze it, whatever. We should think, okay, this is due to whatever reason I have to go through it. I should just use every opportunity to try and get closer to Krishna. It's a complicated thing. Karma is a very complicated thing, so hard to tell. But sometimes in your heart, when you feel that this was Krishna's arrangement, it's okay to accept that. It's nice.
Okay. Okay, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you for explaining nicely.
We always say like this, now we are in Abu Dhabi, and I came here some 6 months ago, stayed with some devotees, and I was very attracted to the congregation here. And I thought, we have to be in this region, UAE, for my Prabhu's service. And I thought it would be nicer if we could be here instead of Dubai. And somehow things panned out in such a way that, yes, we are in Abu Dhabi and not in the busy city of Dubai. So I feel So when I talk to devotees, I say, "Oh, Krishna's been so kind. He's so merciful." So maybe it is not that Krishna is personally intervening in our life, and certainly not to fulfill our little desires. But it's nice. It's nice to feel like that. That maybe this is better for our spiritual life. Therefore, this arrangement is made. There's no harm in it. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Dikhi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Rami Pranams.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. It was such a wonderful lecture and much awaited one for sure. Mataji, my question is that how to pacify new devotees when they share like their problems and the problems are severe. So telling them that it is their karma might just drag them totally away from Krishna.
Yeah.
So how can we pacify them?
I don't know. Will it turn them away from Krishna? Because I feel that that is a better understanding. It's a very important aspect of our philosophy, which distinguishes us from religions such as Christianity. Because in Christianity, there is no actual reason why people suffer. There's no concept of karma. So they feel everything is happening because of God. God is putting us directly in a certain situation. And sometimes they feel, okay, God must be very cruel to be doing this. So I feel the explanation of it happens because of our own karma is better, because it puts the onus on us. Then we are not blaming anybody else, and certainly not God. So if we explain it nicely, I think it is a better explanation. Otherwise, what other reason is there? It's just by chance. Okay, that's one reason, that people who are not spiritual, they feel, oh, everything is just random. It just happens. So then let them believe that. Either that is the explanation, that it's just happening, it happens to everybody. Oh, yeah, the economy is bad, so so and so lost their job. It's just how the material world is. Yeah. But actually, when there are some more serious things that happen, when there's a small child who undergoes a lot of suffering, that people are not able to understand without the concept of karma coming in. It's just a small child. He's not done anything wrong to anybody. They're so young, right? Then how do you explain it? And the parents are doing everything for that person to, give them a good, healthy lifestyle. Still, some pain, some suffering comes, some unknown disease comes. So, how do you explain it? I feel karma is a very good explanation, because it really explains so many things which we are otherwise not able to understand. It also helps the people who are undergoing the suffering and people around them to understand that, okay, this is just what to do. This is how the supreme justice system is. Just like here, if somebody makes a mistake, yeah, you suffer for it. But in the since we've undergone so many lifetimes, then the suffer. That's one way of looking at it, that are karma. And also another nicer, more hopeful way of looking at it is that this is the suffering which we had to undergo, and then we'll be free of it. So if we are going on with our spiritual life, we undergo some suffering and then it's done. So now we are approaching our spiritual life, or the next few births will be much easier because our bad karma is going away. And that also in small doses. So all the bad things that were supposed to happen to us will quickly happen. And sometimes this happens when somebody comes to devotional life, suddenly so much suffering will come. And that's what Prabhupada explains. He says sometimes Krishna he'll take away all your attachments and all. So this happens when somebody comes to spiritual life, that maybe Krishna is trying to make them better devotees. But to new people, we can explain like this, that it's not something bad to understand the law of karma. It is actually, it makes sense of so many things that go wrong in the world. But in any case, if they are getting too troubled by it, you can say that it is just so that it's over. And then you can have a nicer life, more peaceful, devotional life. That's another way of explaining it. Does that make sense, Deepti?
Yes, Mataji, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Kamala Mataji. You can ask your question now.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. It was a long time, and it's always a delight to hear your classes. And we keep waiting, as Mataji said. Mataji, you mentioned that Krishna favored Devaki Mata, sorry, Kunti Mata more compared to Devaki.
Yes.
And these calamities. And so the mercy, if you see, Krishna has been more merciful towards Kunti Devi. Then why do we suffer? So you mentioned some points, like sometimes to show good example, like Prahlad Maharaj suffered, yeah, the Pandavas suffered. Due to their suffering, we get to learn, because our lives are not so much in such calamities like they went through. So that is an example for us to we take inspiration from them, and that way we surrender to the Lord. And you also mentioned that sometimes Krishna wants to pull the devotees closer.
Yes.
So, and can we understand sometime another point I was thinking, that maybe Krishna gives us suffering because he wants to make us understand, or make us and enable us to understand and show compassion towards other devotees' sufferings,
Yeah.
because we may not understand, and because we haven't gone through such calamities, so we may not understand.
Yeah. You're right, Kamala Mataji. That's a very important point. I agree with you that sometimes, unless we go through something, we cannot understand what someone else is going through. Of course, in scriptures, it is said that there are various kinds of intelligence. One, the highest intelligence is that one just hears about something and they accept. So a person may hear that the world is full of suffering and they just accept it. Even if their own life, they're not facing suffering, they can understand that that is the nature of the world. But other people have to experience it to understand. And the lowest intelligence is you experience it, still you don't understand. So that's majority of the people. They're suffering, but then as soon as the suffering is over, they feel, no, now we are comfortable. We did the right thing to solve the problem like this. And it's always, I have done it. So that's not a good understanding. But you're right. Most of us are at that stage where, unless we experience it, we cannot really appreciate the troubles that another person is going through or what is given in the scriptures. So that could be a reason, correct? Maybe in our position, it would help us to help other people much more if we get a taste of what they are going through. I don't know whether Krishna would deliberately do that, but yeah, that's a side effect of suffering. Yes, that we become more compassionate. Yeah. Good point. Thank you.
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So I request you all to raise your hands if any questions. Mataji, in chat box, Surabhi Mataji is requesting you, can you take class once in a week?
Yeah, that is always my desire. So if Krishna allows, I hope I can do it. Thank you. I think we should pause the session, end the session today if there are no more questions. everybody has their engagements. Thank you so much for joining and having this nice discussion. Thank you, Matajis. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Danvat pranam, Hare Krishna. And yeah, I hope that I will see you more
Mataji.
frequently now, because there is some stability at the moment. So I hope we can meet more often. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nirmala Mataji. Thank you to Roshni Mataji for the
Thank you so much.
poster. Thank you for you all to take out time. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Pranam.